The room fell silent as Vex entered. The young recruits straightened in their seats, eyes fixed on the tall figure moving to the front of the hall. Vex was a legend in the Galactic Enforcement Agency. His dark blue skin bore scars from 100 battles. His 4 arms moved with practiced grace as he set down his data pad. For 30 years, he had tracked criminals across the stars. He had never failed a mission, never retreated from a fight, never showed fear, until he met humans. "You are here to learn about dangerous species," Vex began, his voice deep and steady. "I will tell you about the most dangerous one I have encountered, not the strongest, not the smartest, but the most dangerous." The recruits leaned forward. They had heard stories about Vex facing down entire armies. What could possibly frighten him? 20 years ago, I received a simple assignment, Vex continued. Retrieve a stolen quantum weapon from a human colony ship. The intelligence report said humans were new to space travel, weak bodies, short lifespans, no natural weapons or armor. The mission seemed routine. He pulled up a holographic image. A small ship appeared, rotating slowly in the blue light. The name Wanderer glowed on its hull. This ship had 42 crew members, all human. The Galactic Council had just made contact with Earth 5 years before. Humans were considered harmless. Curious, but harmless. Like children playing with toys they did not fully understand. Vex paused, his expression growing dark. I took 12 of my best soldiers. All Krenthi warriors, bred for combat. We had military-grade weapons, advanced armor, and complete tactical superiority. We expected to board the ship, secure the weapon, and leave within an hour. One recruit raised a hand. "What went wrong, Commander?" Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been a bitter laugh. "Everything. I made 17 critical errors that day. The first was believing the intelligence report. The second was thinking weak bodies meant weak spirits." He changed the hologram. 4 human faces appeared. The recruits studied them with curiosity. The humans looked strange. Soft skin, only 2 arms, small frames. One of the recruits whispered to another, "They look fragile." "That is what I thought," Vex said, hearing the comment. "Let me tell you about them. The captain was named Tay. He was 40 Earth years old, calm, intelligent. He had served in Earth's military before joining the colony program. When I first saw him, I thought he looked tired. I did not realize he was evaluating me, counting my weapons, calculating his odds." The next face enlarged. "This is Hana, chief engineer. She smiled constantly, made jokes, offered us food and drinks when we boarded. I thought she was trying to be friendly. I did not know she was buying time, watching how we moved, learning our patterns." A third face appeared. Medical Officer Day, quiet, gentle. He was treating a sick crew member when we arrived. I thought he was harmless. He turned out to be one of the most dangerous humans on that ship. The final image showed a small woman with sharp eyes. Security Chief Nari. She was shorter than the others, moved very little, watched everything. I barely noticed her during the initial boarding. That was a mistake. Vex deactivated the hologram and looked at his recruits. "Before I tell you what happened, you need to understand something about humans. They are persistence hunters. Do you know what that means?" The recruits shook their heads. On their home world, humans were not apex predators. They could not outrun most prey, could not overpower large animals, had no venom, no claws, no armor. But they had one ability that made them deadly. They never stopped. They would chase an animal for days. The animal would run, rest, run again. But the humans kept coming. Slow, steady, relentless. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. Then the humans would kill it. Vex let that sink in before continuing. This hunting strategy shaped their entire psychology. Humans do not think like we do. When we face superior force, we calculate odds and retreat if necessary. Humans calculate odds, then ignore them. They have a saying, victory or death. They mean it literally. He pulled up another image, a page from human history. Humans have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, thousands of years of combat. They have fought with sticks, with swords, with explosives, with atomic weapons. They have fought over land, resources, ideas, and pride. Fighting is woven into their culture. The recruits looked uncomfortable. One asked, "Why did the Council allow them into space if they are so violent?" "Because they are also capable of great kindness," Vex replied. "Humans contain contradictions. They will die to save strangers. They will sacrifice everything for their family. They create beautiful art, complex philosophy, and advanced medicine. But when threatened, they become something else entirely." He walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "I learned all of this later. At the time, I knew nothing. I saw Captain Tay as an obstacle to remove. I saw Hana's friendliness as weakness. I saw Day's gentleness as cowardice. I saw Nari's small size as irrelevance." Turning back to the recruits, Vex's expression was grave. "I have fought in 63 combat situations. I have faced species with natural weapons that could cut through steel. I have battled warriors trained from birth for war, but nothing prepared me for fighting humans." "What makes them so dangerous?" a recruit asked. Vex was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "They should have surrendered. Any rational species would have surrendered. We had superior numbers, superior weapons, superior strength. Surrender was the logical choice. But humans do not make logical choices when they are angry." He activated one final hologram. It showed his ship's medical bay, filled with injured Krenthi soldiers. "This is what happened when I demanded Captain Tay hand over a weapon he did not have. When I threatened his crew. When I underestimated what humans are willing to do to protect their home." The recruit stared at the image in shock. 7 Krenthi warriors in medical pods. These were elite soldiers. What could have done this? "Humans did this," Vex said quietly, "with maintenance tools, improvised tactics, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. I will tell you exactly how it happened. I will tell you every mistake I made, and when I am done, you will understand the new protocol." He pointed to the display behind him. "Official Galactic Council Directive. Section 847, Human Engagement Guidelines. Humans are off limits," Vex said, "not because we fear them, but because the galaxy is not ready for what happens when you corner a species that treats surrender as a theoretical concept." The recruits sat in stunned silence as Vex prepared to tell them the full story of the worst day of his long career. The boarding operation began smoothly. Too smoothly. Vex should have recognized that as a warning sign. His strike team approached the Wanderer in standard formation. The human ship floated in space like a wounded bird. Its shields were offline. The weapon systems were minimal, barely enough to fight off pirates. The hull was old, patched in multiple places. Everything about it screamed easy target. "Prepare for breach," Vex ordered his team. "Standard intimidation protocol. Show overwhelming force. Humans are new to galactic law. They will comply when they see we mean business." His second-in-command, a veteran named Krell, nodded. "Visual weapons display. Aggressive posture. Demand immediate surrender." "Exactly," Vex confirmed. "This will be over in minutes." The breach went perfectly. Cutting lasers sliced through the airlock. The doors burst open. Vex's team poured into the cargo bay, weapons raised, moving in practiced coordination. It was a textbook entry. Vex had done this hundreds of times. Captain Tay was waiting for them. The human stood in the center of the cargo bay, hands raised, posture relaxed. He wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons. His face was calm. Too calm. He spoke in broken galactic common, accent thick but understandable. "Welcome to Wanderer. I am Captain Tay. You are galactic enforcement, yes? Please, we can talk. No need for weapons." Vex studied the human carefully. Tay was shorter than expected. Humans averaged about 1.7 meters, small compared to Krenthi's 2.5 meters. Tay's skin was dark, weathered. His eyes were steady, meeting Vex's gaze without flinching. Most species looked away from a Krenthi warrior. Humans apparently did not. "I am Commander Vex of the Galactic Enforcement Agency," Vex announced, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into common. "We have intelligence that your ship is carrying a stolen quantum weapon. You will surrender it immediately." Tay's expression did not change. "Commander Vex, welcome. But I must tell you, we carry no weapons, only medical supplies for the colony on Kepler 442. You can check our manifest." Vex activated his truth scanner, a device that measured biological stress responses. Species lied in predictable ways: elevated heart rate, changed breathing patterns, micro-expressions. The scanner analyzed them all. The reading came back clean. Tay was telling the truth. Impossible. Vex's intelligence was never wrong. The enforcement agency had spent weeks tracking this weapon. Every source pointed to the Wanderer. "Your manifest may be false," Vex said, though doubt crept into his mind. "We will search your ship." "Of course," Tay said, still calm. "But may I offer you and your team refreshments first? You have traveled far. The human tradition is to offer hospitality to visitors." This threw Vex off balance. Species usually responded to enforcement raids with fear, anger, or resignation. No one offered refreshments. What kind of strategy was this? Before Vex could respond, a human woman appeared from a side corridor. She was short, curvy, with bright eyes and an enormous smile. She wore grease-stained coveralls and carried a toolbox. "Oh, visitors," she said cheerfully in accented common. "I am Hana, chief engineer. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? We have excellent coffee." Vex's team exchanged confused looks. Krell whispered, "Commander, what are they doing?" "I do not know," Vex admitted quietly. The situation felt wrong. Not dangerous. Wrong. Humans were supposed to be intimidated. Instead, they acted like hosts welcoming guests. The tactic was so unexpected that Vex had no counter for it. "We are not here for drinks," Vex said firmly, trying to regain control. "We are here to search your ship. Where is the weapon?" "We have no weapon," Tay repeated patiently. "But you may search. Hana will guide you. Our ship is not large. It will not take long." The engineer nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, yes, I will show you everything. Engine room, cargo holds, crew quarters, medical bay. All very boring, I promise. No weapons, many spare parts and medical equipment. Very dull." Something about her cheerfulness irritated Vex. It felt mocking. No, that was not quite right. She seemed genuinely friendly, which made no sense given 12 armed soldiers had just invaded her ship. "Fine," Vex said. "Krell, take teams 1 and 2. Search the lower decks. I will search the command areas. Maintain open communication." As his team split up, Hana walked beside Vex, still chattering. "You are Krenthi, yes? I have read about your species. Very strong, very honorable. You have beautiful home world. 4 moons, correct? Must be lovely." Vex ignored her, focusing on the search. The corridors were narrow, designed for smaller human frames. His Krenthi warriors had to duck and squeeze through spaces. Uncomfortable, but manageable. They passed crew members. Humans stopped and stared, but made no threatening moves. One human, a thin man with gray hair, was working in what appeared to be a medical bay. He looked up as Vex passed, smiled slightly, then returned to his work, completely unconcerned. "That is Day," Hana explained. "Our doctor. Very good doctor. Saved many lives. Very gentle man." The medical bay was small but well organized. Cabinets full of supplies, diagnostic equipment, a patient sleeping in one bed. Day treated his patient, ignoring the armed soldiers searching his space. All medical supplies are logged, Day said softly in common, not looking up. You can check records, everything legal and documented. Vex's team searched thoroughly. No weapons. Just exactly what they claimed. Medical equipment. The pattern repeated throughout the ship. Cargo holds contained supply crates, all properly sealed and labeled. Engine room was a mess of tools and spare parts, but no weapons. Crew quarters were cramped and personal, but clean. No weapons. Storage areas, maintenance tunnels, life support systems, no weapons anywhere. After 2 hours of searching, Vex stood on the bridge with Captain Tay. His team had found nothing. The truth scanner still showed Tay was not lying. The manifest was legitimate. Every crew member's story matched. Commander Vex, Tay said quietly, I told you. We have no weapon. Your intelligence is wrong. Vex's pride stung. He had never been wrong before. Someone had given him false information. But why? Who would benefit from sending enforcement to harass a human medical transport? The answer hit him like a plasma bolt. Political sabotage. There were factions in the Council who opposed human expansion into space. They wanted an incident. They wanted enforcement to create a conflict that would justify restricting human space travel. And Vex had walked right into it. Captain Tay, Vex said slowly, I believe there has been a mistake. Our intelligence appears to have been... Commander, Krell's voice crackled over the communicator. We have a problem. One of the humans attempted to access a restricted area. We detained her. She fought back. Vex's blood went cold. What do you mean, fought back? She attacked Soldier Vren. He is injured, requesting backup. Everything happened very fast after that. Vex rushed to the lower deck. He found 3 of his soldiers struggling with a small human woman. She was tiny, barely 1.6 meters, but she moved like lightning, twisting and striking with terrifying precision. As Vex watched, she broke free from one soldier's grip, drove her elbow into another's throat, and kicked the third's knee with a crack that echoed in the corridor. Nari! Captain Tay shouted, appearing behind Vex. Stand down! The woman, Security Chief Nari, froze. She was breathing hard, eyes wild. One of Vex's soldiers was on the ground, unconscious. Another held his bleeding face. The third limped badly. She attacked us, Krell said. Weapon pointed at Nari. We were searching the restricted area. She told us to leave. When we refused, she attacked. Tay's expression changed. The calm disappeared, replaced by something hard and cold. That restricted area is our crew's personal quarters. You had no authorization to enter private spaces. We have authorization to search the entire ship, Vex snapped, anger rising. No, Tay said, voice flat. You have authorization to search for weapons, not to invade our privacy, not to threaten our people, not to violate our home. The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. Other human crew members appeared, moving silently into position. Vex suddenly realized they were surrounded. The humans carried tools, wrenches, cutting torches, metal bars, not military weapons, but weapons nonetheless. Engineer Hana stood in the doorway, her friendly smile gone. Commander Vex, she said softly, you should have accepted the coffee. That is when Vex made his biggest mistake. He gave the order that changed everything. Subdue all crew members. Take control of the ship. Tay looked at him with something like pity. You really should not have done that. The fight should have lasted 30 seconds. It lasted 4 hours. Vex's team moved first. They were trained warriors, bred for combat. Krenthi soldiers were 3 times stronger than humans, with armored skin and enhanced reflexes. They carried stun weapons designed to drop targets instantly. Against 42 lightly armed humans in a confined space, victory was guaranteed, except nobody told the humans that. The corridor erupted into chaos. Vex fired his stunner at Captain Tay. The blast hit center mass, enough energy to knock out a Krenthi for hours. Tay staggered, went to one knee, and then stood back up. His face was pale, sweat dripping, but he was still conscious. "Impossible," Vex breathed. "Hurts," Tay gasped. "But I have been hurt before." Then Security Chief Nari moved. She was small and quick, and she used the narrow corridor like a weapon. Vex's soldiers could not move easily in the tight space. Their large frames and heavy armor made them slow. Nari slipped between them like water, striking joints and weak points with brutal efficiency. Soldier Krell tried to grab her. She dropped low, swept his legs, and when he fell, she was already gone. Another soldier swung his weapon. Nari caught his arm, twisted, and used his own momentum to slam him into the wall. "She is too fast," Krell shouted. "Corner her!" But you cannot corner someone who knows every centimeter of their own ship. Nari vanished into a maintenance shaft, an opening too small for Krenthi soldiers. Vex heard her moving through the walls, taunting them. "First rule of fighting," her voice echoed from somewhere above, "know your terrain." Then the lights went out. Engineer Hana had killed the main power. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red shadows. The environmental systems groaned and changed pitch. Vex's tactical advantage vanished in the darkness. "Night vision," Vex ordered. His team activated their helmet displays. But the Wanderer was not designed for Krenthi technology. Their sensors got confused by the strange human ship layout. Heat signatures bounced everywhere. Motion detectors went crazy. Something small and fast hit Vex from behind. He turned, swinging, but hit only air. Pain exploded in his leg. He looked down to see a metal tool sticking out of his thigh. A human crew member, a young man with frightened eyes, stood 10 meters away, breathing hard. "Sorry," the human said, not sounding sorry at all. "But you invaded our home." Vex pulled the tool out, ichor dripping. The wound was not serious, but it hurt, and it was humiliating. He was a decorated commander, injured by a civilian with a thrown wrench. This was not how battles were supposed to go. His team tried to regroup in the cargo bay. 7 soldiers, all injured to varying degrees. They set up a defensive position and called for backup from their ship, but when they tried to transmit, nothing happened. "Communications are jammed," Krell reported. "They are blocking our signal." "How?" Vex demanded. "This ship barely has functional sensors." As if answering his question, Hana's voice came over the Wanderer's intercom. She sounded cheerful again, but with an edge underneath. "Hello, Commander Vex. Sorry about communications. I rerouted your signal into a loop. Very simple trick. You are talking only to yourselves now." "This is illegal," Vex shouted at the ceiling. "You are attacking Galactic enforcement officers." "You are attacking a civilian vessel," Tay's voice replied, calm despite everything. "We are defending ourselves. Galactic law allows this. Maybe you should have checked before you ordered your soldiers to subdue all crew members." Vex realized with growing horror that Tay was right. Self-defense laws were clear. If enforcement used excessive force, civilians could resist, and Vex had definitely used excessive force. The entire incident was being recorded by the ship's systems. If this went to council review, Vex would be the one facing charges. "Stand down," Vex ordered Tay. "We can resolve this peacefully." "You had your chance for peace," Tay replied. "You wanted war, so now you have war." The cargo bay doors suddenly opened. Atmosphere rushed out into space. Vex and his team were pulled toward the void. Only their magnetic boots saved them, locking to the floor with a heavy clang. But the sudden decompression scattered their equipment. Weapons floated away. Medical supplies spun into darkness. Then the doors closed again. Atmosphere pumped back in. Vex's team stood in the cargo bay, disarmed and disoriented. Hana's voice over the intercom sounded apologetic. "Just so you know, I can do that to any room on this ship. Maybe think about that before you try to move. For the next 3 hours, the humans made Vex's life miserable. They used every trick, every advantage. The Wanderer became a maze of traps and ambushes. When Vex's team tried to reach the engine room, coolant flooded the corridor. The super-cold liquid did not hurt Krenthi badly, but it slowed them down and ruined their equipment. When they tried to access the bridge, electrical currents surged through the doors. Not enough to kill, but enough to hurt. When they tried to cut through walls, they found the humans had reinforced key areas with their limited resources. What should have taken minutes took hours. And always, the humans kept fighting. They should have been exhausted. They should have given up. They were injured, outnumbered in direct combat, facing superior force, but they did not stop. Medical Officer Day was the strangest one. He fought while treating the wounded, both human and Krenthi. Vex's soldier Vren was badly hurt from Nari's initial attack. Day appeared, moving carefully with hands raised. "I am a doctor," Day said quietly. "Let me help him." "You are the enemy," Krell said, weapon pointed. "I am a doctor," Day repeated. "He is hurt. I help hurt people. That is what doctors do." Against all logic, Krell let him approach. Day treated Vren's injuries with quick, efficient movements. Then he stood and returned to treating human casualties. Vex watched, fascinated and confused. The human had just saved an enemy soldier's life, then went back to fighting that same enemy. "Why did you help him?" Vex called out. Day looked at him with tired eyes. "Because he is hurt. Because I can help. Because being at war does not mean being cruel." He paused. "Also, if you kill us, who will treat your wounded? Think about that." It was the most practical mercy Vex had ever witnessed. The turning point came when Vex tried to corner Captain Tay on the bridge. Just the two of them. No crew, no backup. Vex was larger, stronger, armed. Tay had only a short metal bar. They fought. Tay was skilled, clearly trained in combat. But skill only goes so far against superior strength. Vex landed heavy blows. Tay blocked what he could, took what he could not. Blood ran from Tay's nose. His lips split. His breathing became labored. But he did not fall. "Just surrender," Vex said, frustrated. "You cannot win this." Tay smiled through bloody teeth. "Winning is not the point. Making you regret, this is the point." Then Tay did something insane. He triggered the bridge emergency protocol, the one that vents the entire command deck to space in case of contamination. The blast doors started closing. Vacuum alarms screamed. "You will die too!" Vex shouted. "Maybe," Tay said, running for the emergency suit locker. "But I know where the suits are. Do you?" Vex ran. He barely made it through the blast doors before they sealed. Behind him, he heard the rush of escaping air. Through the door window, he saw Tay struggling into a pressure suit, movements frantic but practiced. Tay survived, because he was willing to bet his life that he could reach a suit faster than Vex could escape, because he was willing to kill himself to make a point. What kind of species does that? When Galactic Council mediators finally arrived, drawn by the beacon Vex activated in desperation, they found a disaster. 7 Krenthi soldiers injured, 3 seriously. 2 were unconscious, defeated by a species that supposedly posed no military threat. The Wanderer crew was in better shape despite being heavily outnumbered. They had turned their home into a fortress and held it against overwhelming odds. The lead mediator, a calm Asterian named Srel, looked at the carnage and sighed. "Commander Vex, what happened here?" Vex looked at Captain Tay, standing bloody but unbroken across the cargo bay. Looked at Hana, who had turned an engineering degree into a military advantage. Looked at Day, who had fought and healed simultaneously. Looked at Nari, who had taken on 3 soldiers and won. I underestimated them, Vex said quietly. I will not make that mistake again. The investigation took 3 days. 3 days of interviews, evidence collection, and diplomatic negotiation. 3 days where Vex was forced to remain on the Wanderer, while council mediators sorted out the mess. 3 days where he learned to truly fear humans. The mediators reviewed everything. Ship recordings showed Vex's team searching private quarters without proper authorization. Showed Vex ordering his soldiers to subdue the crew. Showed the humans fighting only in self-defense, using minimal necessary force despite having opportunities for lethal action. The conclusion was clear. Vex had violated protocol. The humans were within their rights to resist. Mediator Srel delivered the verdict privately. Commander, you are lucky. Captain Tay has agreed not to file formal charges. The council will quietly discipline you, but your career is not over. However, you must understand, this incident cannot be repeated. Relations with Earth are delicate. We cannot afford another mistake. I understand, Vex said, though shame burned in his chest. Do you? Srel asked gently. Because I think you still do not understand what you faced here. I think you see this as a tactical failure. It was not. It was a cultural failure. You did not understand humans. That night, Captain Tay found Vex in the observation deck. The human carried 2 cups of dark, steaming liquid. He offered one to Vex. Coffee, Tay said. I promised you refreshments. Better late than never, yes? Vex accepted the cup awkwardly. His translator identified the liquid as a stimulant drink containing mild toxins. This is poison? To some species, yes. To humans, it is life. Tay smiled and sat down, looking out at the stars. We should talk, Commander. You have questions. I can see it in your eyes. Vex sat carefully. How did you survive the stun blast? It should have knocked you unconscious. Adrenaline, Tay explained. Human bodies produce a chemical when we are threatened. It increases heart rate, reduces pain, gives us temporary strength. We can push through injuries that should disable us. For a short time, our bodies ignore their limits. That sounds dangerous. It is. We damage ourselves using adrenaline, torn muscles, broken bones from overexertion, heart problems later in life. But in the moment, it keeps us alive. Tay sipped his coffee. Evolution made us very good at surviving immediate threats. We pay the price later. Vex thought about this. Your entire species is built for desperate survival? Essentially, yes. Earth is a harsh world, Commander. Beautiful but harsh. Predators, diseases, climate extremes, natural disasters. Humans were never the strongest or fastest species on our planet. We survived by being stubborn, adaptable, and willing to pay any price for one more day of life. Over the next 2 days, Vex learned more about humans than he thought possible. Captain Tay became an unexpected teacher, explaining his species with patience and honesty. They sat in the small mess hall. Tay showed Vex images from Earth's history on a data pad. Pictures of ancient human warriors, faces painted, weapons primitive, but spirits fierce. This is from Sparta, Tay said. Ancient Earth civilization. They were warriors. 300 Spartans once held off an army of hundreds of thousands. They all died, but they made their enemy pay for every meter of ground. We tell this story to our children. We celebrate the defeat because they fought beautifully. You celebrate losing? Vex asked, confused. We celebrate the fight, the courage, the refusal to quit even when defeat was certain. Tay scrolled to another image. The Alamo. Small group of defenders against massive army. They lost. We built monuments to remember them. This is madness. To you, perhaps. To us, it is inspiration. We teach our children that how you lose matters as much as whether you win. Engineer Hannah joined them, carrying her own coffee. Commander Vex, you want to understand humans? Let me show you something. She pulled up a file. text from human literature. This is from Tolkien, one of our great storytellers. Listen, there is some good in this world, and it is worth fighting for. That is human philosophy in one sentence. We fight not always to win, but because some things are worth the cost. Vex read more of the human stories Hannah showed him, tales of desperate last stands, stories of heroes who sacrificed everything, legends of warriors who chose death over surrender. You romanticize violence, Vex observed. We romanticize courage, Hannah corrected. There is a difference. We do not love war. We hate it. But we love the people who stand up when standing up is hard. We love those who protect the weak. We love those who fight for what is right even when they know they will lose. Medical Officer Day added his perspective during a quiet moment. Vex found the doctor in the medical bay, treating injuries, both human and Krenthi. Day worked with the same gentle efficiency, making no distinction between former enemies. "Why do you treat us?" Vex asked. "We attacked your ship, threatened your crew." Day did not look up from his work. "Because you are hurt. Because I am a doctor. My oath does not stop because of conflict. This is illogical." Now Day looked at him. "Is it? You will remember this, Commander. You will remember that humans helped you when they could have hurt you. You will remember that we showed mercy when we could have shown cruelty. Maybe next time you will think twice before attacking a human ship. Maybe you will choose words over weapons. How is that illogical?" Vex had no answer. Security Chief Nari was the hardest to understand. She avoided Vex mostly, still angry about the invasion. But one evening she approached him in the corridor. "You are wondering how I defeated your soldiers," she said without preamble. "Yes. I trained in something called martial arts. Human combat systems developed over thousands of years. They teach us to use an opponent's strength against them, to find weak points, to turn disadvantage into advantage." She demonstrated a quick motion, showing how she had swept Krell's legs. "Your soldiers were bigger, stronger, better armed, but they were trained to fight in open spaces against similar opponents. I was trained to fight anywhere, against anyone." "You fought like you expected to lose," Vex said. Nari smiled slightly. "Every human fights like we expect to lose, because we usually do. But we have learned that losing the battle does not mean losing the war, and sometimes making your enemy hurt enough means they will not want a second battle." "Is that why you fought so hard? To discourage future attacks?" "Partly. Also because you threatened my home, my family. Humans are very protective of family." Her expression hardened. "You came into our home with weapons. You threatened people I care about. What did you expect us to do?" The question haunted Vex. What had he expected? Compliance? Fear? Surrender? He had not expected courage, had not expected creativity, had not expected a species to turn their own ship into a weapon, to fight injured, to show mercy to enemies while still resisting them. On the final day before the mediators cleared him to leave, Captain Tay invited Vex to the observation deck one last time. "You will write a report about us," Tay said. It was not a question. "Yes. I must document what happened here." "What will you say?" Vex considered carefully. "I will say that humans are dangerous, not because of strength or technology, but because of psychology. You do not think like other species. You treat survival as optional and winning as mandatory. You will die for ideas, for family, for pride. You cannot be intimidated because you have already accepted death as a possible outcome of any conflict." Tay nodded slowly. "That is fair. But add one more thing." "What?" "Add that we are also capable of friendship, of forgiveness, of mercy. Yes, we will fight you if you threaten us, but we will also help you if you ask. We contain contradictions, Commander. We are warriors and healers, destroyers and builders. We can be your worst enemy or your best ally. The choice is yours." Vex looked at this small, fragile human who had nearly destroyed his career and taught him humility in the process. Which would you prefer? Tay smiled. I prefer friends. Friends are less exhausting than enemies, and I think we could learn much from each other. I think you are right, Vex said quietly. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Two warriors from different worlds, finding unexpected common ground. The coffee had gone cold, but neither moved to leave. Some moments deserved to be savored. Vex, Tay said eventually, when you return to your people, tell them this. Tell them humans are not their enemies. But also tell them, do not make us your enemies. Because if you do, we will fight with everything we have. And we have been fighting for a very, very long time. I will tell them, Vex promised. I will make sure they understand. Vex stood before the recruits in the present day, 20 years after the incident on the Wanderer. The young soldiers looked at him with new understanding. Their legendary commander had been humbled by a species they had never considered dangerous. That is the full story, Vex said. Every mistake, every miscalculation, every assumption that nearly cost me my career and my soldiers their lives. One recruit raised a hand hesitantly. Commander, what happened after you left the Wanderer? Did you face punishment? Yes and no. The council quietly reprimanded me. I lost command privileges for 6 months, had to undergo cultural sensitivity training. Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. But something else happened. Something more important than punishment. He activated a holographic display. Official Galactic Council documents appeared, floating in blue light. I spent those 6 months studying humans, everything I could find. Their history, culture, psychology, military tactics. I interviewed xenobiologists, cultural experts, and other humans who had joined the galactic community. I built a comprehensive profile of humanity. The display changed to show a thick report. Then I submitted this to the council, a complete analysis of human threat potential, not military threat, psychological threat. I argued that humans were fundamentally different from other spacefaring species, that our standard enforcement protocols were not just ineffective against them, but actively dangerous. What did the council say? Another recruit asked. They argued with me for months. Many council members thought I was overreacting. Humans were new to space, primitive compared to older civilizations. Surely they would adapt to galactic norms over time. Vex paused, remembering those frustrating debates. Then the Aurora Station incident happened. The recruits leaned forward. Everyone had heard of Aurora Station. A human trade delegation was visiting Aurora Station, a major diplomatic hub. Some drunk Krell traders decided to harass the human ambassador. Her name was G1, small woman, barely 1.6 meters tall. The Krell thought she would be an easy target for their amusement. Vex pulled up security footage. The recruits watched as 3 large Krell, each massing twice what the human did, surrounded the small woman. One grabbed her arm. The footage showed what happened next in brutal detail. G1 put all 3 in the station medical bay within 45 seconds. She used their own momentum against them. Broke one's arm, dislocated another's shoulder. The third got his face smashed into a table. Vex paused the footage. Then she calmly called station security, filed a formal complaint, and went back to her diplomatic duties. The council could no longer ignore the pattern. Humans were consistently defending themselves with disproportionate effectiveness. Not because of superior technology or training, but because of their psychology. They simply did not back down when threatened. The display changed again, showing the official protocol document. Section 847, Human Engagement Guidelines. I wrote most of this based on my experience in the Aurora Station incident and dozens of smaller conflicts. Vex began explaining the protocols. First, humans are classified as Level 5 volatility, the highest rating for cultural incompatibility with standard galactic norms. This means normal enforcement procedures do not apply. Second, any enforcement action against human vessels or colonies requires council approval and minimum response of 3 cruisers with diplomatic support. We do not send small teams anymore. We send overwhelming force or we send diplomats. No middle ground. Third, and most important, treat humans with respect. Do not threaten their homes, their families, or their dignity. They will tolerate many things. They will negotiate, compromise, accept reasonable restrictions. But if you threaten what they consider sacred, they will fight, and they will hurt you even if they lose. A recruit spoke up. Commander, this sounds like we are afraid of them. We are not afraid, Vex corrected firmly. We are respectful. There is a difference. Fear is irrational. Respect is earned. Humans earned my respect through courage, creativity, and mercy. They could have killed my soldiers. They chose not to. They could have humiliated me before the council. They chose not to. Captain Tay taught me that humans want friends, not enemies. But if you force them to be enemies, they are very good at it. The display changed to show current statistics. Since implementing these protocols 20 years ago, human-related enforcement incidents have dropped by 93%. Not because humans became less volatile, but because we stopped treating them like everyone else. We adapted to them instead of demanding they adapt to us. What happened to the Wanderer crew? A recruit asked. Vex smiled, a gesture he had learned from humans. Captain Tay became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. He serves on the diplomatic committee now. His calm approach and cultural understanding have prevented 3 potential wars. The Council listens to him because he speaks honestly and backs his words with quiet strength. Engineer Hana designed the defense systems for human colonies across 6 sectors. Her creative problem-solving, the same creativity she used to turn a civilian ship into a fortress, now protects millions. She is considered one of the best defensive engineers in the galaxy. Medical Officer Day founded the first human-led trauma research facility. He trains doctors from 30 different species in battlefield medicine. His philosophy of healing without judgment, of showing mercy to enemies, has changed how we approach combat medicine. Security Chief Nari runs the Earth Defense Academy. She trains human peacekeepers who now serve throughout the galaxy. Her students are known for being tough, fair, and impossible to intimidate. Every species wants them as allies. No one wants them as enemies. Vex paused, letting this sink in. These 4 humans, the ones who defeated my elite soldiers, are now integral to galactic society. They contribute more than most species contribute in a century. Because someone chose to see them as potential allies instead of threats. That someone was me. After the incident, I personally sponsored Earth's application to join the Galactic Council. I argued for their inclusion despite opposition. Some council members thought I was being sentimental, but I knew something they did not. What was that? A recruit asked. I knew that humans would join galactic society whether we invited them or not. They are explorers, adventurers, stubborn and curious and unstoppable. We could welcome them as friends or fight them as enemies. I chose friendship. The council eventually agreed. Vex pulled up one final image. It showed him and Captain Tay sitting together in a bar, both holding drinks, both laughing. This was taken 3 months ago. Tay and I meet every few cycles. We drink terrible human coffee and good Krenthi blood wine. We trade stories about our careers. We argue about philosophy and tactics. We have become friends. 20 years ago, I thought humans were weak. Now I know they are strong in ways that matter more than physical power. They are loyal, creative, compassionate, and brave. They will die for strangers. They will fight impossible odds. They will show mercy to enemies. They are everything we should want in galactic neighbors. Vex looked at each recruit in turn. But never forget, they are also dangerous. Not because they want to be, but because they refuse to be victims. Corner them, threaten them, attack their homes, and you will learn what I learned. That fragile does not mean weak. That small does not mean helpless. That new to space does not mean naive. You will learn that humans have been practicing warfare for their entire history. They have refined it, studied it, turned it into an art form. They know 1,000 ways to kill and 10,000 ways to survive. And most important, they know how to turn disadvantage into advantage. A recruit stood. Commander, you said earlier that if humans became hostile to the galaxy, we should hope for their forgiveness. Do you still believe that? Vex considered this carefully. Yes, but I do not believe it will happen. Humans want to explore, to learn, to make friends. They are fundamentally optimistic despite their violent history. They believe in second chances, redemption, and building better futures. As long as we treat them with respect, they will be our allies. But if we betray that trust, if we make the same mistakes I made, but on a larger scale, Vex's expression grew dark. Then we would face a species that treats surrender as a theoretical concept, a species that celebrates heroic defeats, a species that will fight for generations if they believe the cause is just. We would face humanity at war, and I promise you, the galaxy is not ready for that. He deactivated the display. That is why these protocols exist. That is why humans are off limits without council approval. That is why I tell you this story. Learn from my mistakes. Respect humanity. Treat them as equals. And if you ever encounter a human ship in distress, help them. Because the friend you make today might save your life tomorrow. But if you ever receive orders to engage a human target, request immediate clarification from Council Command. Verify the intelligence, check the protocols, because another incident like the Wanderer could destroy everything we have built with humanity, and I will not allow my mistakes to be repeated. The briefing room was silent. The recruits absorbed everything they had learned. Their view of humans had changed completely. No longer a curiosity or a primitive species. Now a powerful ally that demanded respect. One recruit spoke quietly. Commander, thank you for your honesty, for sharing your failure. Vex nodded. Failure is the best teacher. I failed against Captain Tay and his crew, but that failure taught me humility, respect, and the value of cultural understanding. I became a better officer because of it. Better commander, better person. If you remember nothing else from today, remember this. Every species in the galaxy has something to teach us. Humans taught me that strength comes in many forms, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it, that mercy is not weakness, but the ultimate form of strength. He looked at the young faces before him. Now go, study the protocols, learn about humanity, and if you ever meet a human, treat them well. Offer them coffee, even if it tastes like poison. Listen to their stories. See them as people, not statistics. Because the galaxy's deadliest alien enforcer learned the most important lesson of his career from a small human captain who offered him refreshments during an invasion. Learn from my story, be better than I was, and maybe, just maybe, we can build a galaxy where humans and all species work together, not as enemies, but as friends. The recruit stood and saluted. Vex returned the salute, feeling the weight of years and wisdom. As they filed out, one recruit paused. Commander, one last question. Would you do it differently if you could go back? Vex thought about Captain Tay's calm eyes, Hana's cheerful smile hiding fierce intelligence, Day's gentle hands and warrior spirit, Nari's quick movements and protective loyalty. No, he said finally. I would not change it, because the mistakes I made led to the friendships I treasure. They led to better protocols that protect both humans and other species. They led to me becoming someone worthy of Captain Tay's respect. Sometimes, the hardest lessons teach us the most valuable truths. The recruit nodded and left. Vex stood alone in the empty briefing room, looking at the frozen image of him and Tay laughing together. 20 years since the Wanderer. 20 years since he learned that humanity's greatest strength is not their weapons or technology, but their refusal to give up. Their capacity for both violence and mercy, their ability to forgive former enemies and build better futures. Vex picked up his data pad and composed a message to Captain Tay. Same bar, next cycle, I will bring the blood wine, you bring that terrible coffee, we have much to discuss. The response came quickly. I will be there, old friend, and it is not terrible coffee. You just have no taste. Vex's mandibles clicked in amusement. 20 years of friendship built on mutual respect and shared honesty. This was the legacy he wanted. Not his military victories, but the peace he had helped build between species. Humans were off limits, not because they were weak, but because they were strong. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were valuable, not because they were feared, but because they were friends, and that made all the difference.